Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our web seminar today. This seminar is organized by ScoutAsia, an Asia-focused information platform by Nikkei, and FiinGroup, the leading service provider of financial information in Vietnam. Today, we want to overview many topics around banking sector in Vietnam. And the banking sector is at the core of the economic growth. And as you know, the Vietnamese economy holds a unique position in the regional market as a trade and a manufacturing hub. But not only that, it attracts foreign investment a lot because of the growing consumer market of nearly 100 million people. During this session, you will also learn briefly about solutions and products from ScoutAsia and FiinGroup. Hope you enjoy the time with us until the end. Now, let me quickly explain today's program and speakers. First up, we have two colleagues from FiinGroup who gives insightful presentation on the sector overview and trends. Don is Managing Director and Head of Market Research and Consulting Service, Fiin Research. He has over 20 years of hands-on experience in market research, commercial due diligence, and market entry advisory. And we have Tun An from Fiin Ratings. He will talk about, he will cover non-banking segments such as corporate bonds and consumer finance. He has 9 years of experience in economic and market analysis at the State Securities Commission, and then worked at the Australian Embassy in Vietnam. And of course, we are pleased to welcome a guest speaker from the Bank for Investment and Development of Vietnam. Dr. Luc is Chief Economist of the BIDB and the President of BIDB Training and Research Institute. He's a member of the Bank Board's Risk Management Committee and the Organizational and Strategy Committee as well. And he will be giving comments during the presentations and also answering questions from the audience. And finally, you will meet Chandra from ScoutAsia. He will show you an advanced corporate research and monitoring tool from ScoutAsia for your desktop research and investigation on local businesses and entities. We appreciate many questions you have submitted through the registration form. We looked them through and they were very, very helpful for us to understand your interests. We will cover your interests as much as possible. Some can be answered through the presentation, but we also take up some common questions during the Q&A. We are open for further questions during the presentations and sessions from the audience. You can use this Q&A button. It can be found on the block bar on your screen at the bottom of the screen, and I post questions. Now I'd like to hand over the time to the speakers. Don, please go ahead, introduce yourself and take over screen when you are ready.
Yes, thank you so much, Nita-san, for your introduction. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to express my sincere thanks to you for your time to join our webinar today. Firstly, before entering my presentation, I would like to discuss the reason why we bring up the banking sector topic to the webinar today. As you may know, in Vietnam, the banking is the backbone sector in the economy. For now, the Vietnam credit to GDP is mounted to over 140% already, and so we can call the Vietnam is the bank-based economy. Over the last 2 years, during the COVID, despite of the negative impact of the pandemic, the banking sector continue enjoy double-digit growth in terms of the credit growth and earning. And we expect that the banking sector will continue the strong growth in the time to come, thanks to the recovery of the economy and the strong domestic demand and the credit demands. Therefore, it attract the strong increase from foreign investor for now and in the time to come. However, the performance of the banking sector also raised some concern for the central bank and the public, mainly in terms of the asset quality, the great exposure to some risky areas like real estate, security service, or BOT. So, and the banking sector is also one of the channel for the central bank to execute the monetary policy to support post-pandemic economic recovery and combat inflation. Therefore, today we would like to share with you the independent and comprehensive insight on the banking sector performance and the central bank reactions to support economic growth and to control inflation, and also the role of the rating service for the development of the corporate bond sector and also for the credit market in Vietnam in the time to come. Yes, in my presentation, I would like to give you a very quick introduction to our firm, the FiinGroup, and then I would like to share with you the performance of the banking sector, including the performance of the sector in terms of the credit growth, the asset quality, earning qualities, and operational efficiency, and also the sector outlook. And then I would like to share with you our track record in market research and consulting and rating services that support the foreign investor to get in-depth understanding of the sector and also to make information to expand business in Vietnam. For the FiinGroup, for now we are the leading business information, market research, and credit rating service firm in Vietnam. We established in 2008, and in 2014 we welcome a strategic shareholder from Japan, Nikkei Quick, to join our firm. And for now, our Japanese shareholder collaborate with us closely to support Japanese clients both from Vietnam and Japan. And for now, we provide 4 types of service. The first one we call the financial information. The second one is business information and credit rating and market research and consulting. And today, the 2 divisions, market research and rating service divisions, join force to host the webinar today. Yeah, I would like to discuss further for the track records in service offering of the 2 divisions at the end of the presentation. Yes, in the next slide, I would like to discuss about the Vietnam macroeconomics performance. As you may know, in the first quarter this year, we achieved 5% GDP growth year-on-year, mainly thanks to the strong recovery of the economic activities and the domestic consumption. And thanks to our strong macroeconomic fundamentals, the manufacturing activities in terms of PMI and our trade flows show the strong resilience and steadily growth during the first quarter, during the first 5 months, despite of the impact from the geopolitical conflicts in between the Russia or Ukraine and the global inflation pressure. So we, based on this movement, we think that by the end of this year, our economy may achieve the 5% GDP growth. Yes, regarding the inflation, in the first 5 months of this year, the inflation amounted to the 2.3% already, mainly due to the pressure from the global inflation and the global commodity price. And I think that the inflation will be the main focus for our economy this year, and also the key and will be controlled by the government and the State Bank in Vietnam. We, for now, thanks to the strong FDI and M&A and portfolio investment flows, and also the trade surplus, we maintain and improve our external position very strongly in recent years. And for now, we have around over 110 million US dollars, around equivalent to around 3.8 import months already. And our central bank, State Bank of Vietnam, implement the monetary and the forex policy quite well, support us to maintain the stable currency value compared to other peers in the region. So we think that the inflation under the well controlled by the government and the stable currency will be the key factors to support our resilient economy throughout the year. And in the next slide, I would like to discuss further on the performance of the banking sector in Vietnam. Firstly, regarding the great growth, as you may see on the slide, during the 2 years of COVID, despite of the negative impact of the pandemic, the banking sector continue the double-digit growth in terms of the credit portfolio, over 12% and 30%. And for the first 5 months of this year, we achieved around 7.7% year-to-date growth of credit already, and it's outperformed the equivalent figures in previous year, showing mainly thanks to the strong economic recovery and the great demand from the customer. So we expect that with this scenario, we expect that 2022 also another year witnessing the strong growth of the credit portfolio for the banking sector. Regarding the credit by segments, we would like to give you the in-depth breakdown of the loan portfolio by retail loans, loan to the large corporate, loan to SME, and the corporate bond. As you may see on the screen, the retail loan account for the largest portion in the loan portfolio of the banking sector, and it's also enjoy the higher growth compared to the corporate loans, mainly thanks to the strong consumption demand, and also the large and young population of our economy. And therefore, we think that therefore we think that in the time to come, the retail loans continue the key driver for the great growth for the whole economy. And also, as you can see on the figure 11, the penetration rate of the consumer lending in Vietnam is rather low compared to other peers in the region. So it's also the factor support the strong growth of the consumer lending in the time to come. In the next slide, I would like to discuss further on the grid to real estate sector, one of the hot topic for now in Vietnam. As you may see on the figure 12, number 12, for now the grid to real estate sector account for about 20% of the national loan book already. And loan to the home buyer account for about 70%, and the remaining belong to the loan to the developers. And over the 2 years of the COVID, thanks to the strong housing demand, therefore the grid exposure to real estate sector continue to enjoy the double-digit growth. And in the figure number 12, I would like to show the grid exposure to real estate as retail sector in some selected bank. And here you can see that the grid exposure for real estate sector for some bank is quite large, around over 20%, 30%, or 40%, and especially for the tech bank, it's mounted to the over 70%. So this is one of the reasons why the State Bank of Vietnam focus more to control the grid exposure to the sector. And however, we think that for the large bank like Vietcombank or Techcombank, they are very famous for the conservative lending practice, and they also collaborate and finance the good real estate developers or project. So therefore, I think that the credit risk for the real estate sector may be more significant for the smaller bank, not the large bank. In here, I would like to show the very quick overview on the performance of real estate sector in Vietnam in recent year. As you may see on the screen, we can see the uptrend of the housing price in all segments, while the absorption rate of the housing product is it seems sideways. Therefore, we can raise a concern about the inflated demand in real estate market. So therefore, from the perspective of the real estate, from the banking investor, I think we should focus more on the performance of the local real estate market and its impact on the loan portfolio of the local bank. Okay. Okay, in the next slide, beside the bank loan to real estate sector, I also to conduct in-depth analysis on the corporate bond held by the commercial bank. As you may know, for now, the corporate bond held by the commercial bank is around 3%, and 50% of them is the real estate corporate bond. And as we saw on the figure 19, most of the real estate bond issued in Vietnam are unlisted one. So we think that most of the corporate real estate bonds held by the bank also belong to the unlisted one. And in the figure 20, we can see that the debt service capability of the unlisted one is quite weak compared to the listed issuer. Therefore, we can doubt their credit quality. And regarding the maturity of the corporate bond, according to our corporate bond database, in the next 3 years, we will observe the significance corporate bonds expire in the next 3 years, creating the significant refinancing pressure for the bond issuer, especially for the unlisted one. Therefore, we think that there may be a scenario, if there is a scenario of default in the corporate bond markets, it may lead to the gross default to the bank loans on the bank balance sheet. Yeah, so this is one of the key issues should be focused in monitoring the banking sector in Vietnam for now. And luckily, for now, the local authorities, including the central bank and the Ministry of Finance, they identified and understand the issue and has released some regulation to control the exposure of the bank to the corporate bond, and also to improve the transparency and protect the bond investor. And later on, Mr. Tung Anh from the FiinRating will share more detail about this point with you. Regarding the customer deposit, we see that customer deposit has been rebounded actually to support the acceleration of the credit growth in the first 5 months of the year. And however, the market rate, including the deposit rate or G-bond yield, has been rising because the liquidity in the market is not abundant as before due to the increasing credit demands. Yeah. Regarding the asset quality of the banking sector in Vietnam, by the end of last year, 2021, the reported NPL is around 1.3%, 1.9%. And however, the adjusted NPL, including the on-balance sheet P&L, VAMC, and potential bad debts, and also the potential NPL from the COVID hits loans, amounted to over 7.3% already. And in the first quarter of this year, the NPL ratios tend to decline slightly thanks to the improved the credit quality of the borrower after the reopening of the economy, and also from the increasing credit demand from the market. And in here, and in the below chart, we would like to show the NPL by the selected bank, and we see the surge in the NPL in the sub-bank. It's mainly because the some local banks started reclassifying the COVID restructured loans as the central bank guidance on the loan forbearance, and that classification will be expired by the end of June this year. Regarding the asset quality, we not only discuss the NPL, but also we would like to focus on the, as you can see on the screen, in recent year, the local bank aggressively to make the provisioning for the bad debts, and the loan loss coverage ratio of the whole banking sector increased from 114% up to the 150% by the end of first quarter this year already. However, as we can show on the screen, there is some disparity in terms of provisioning level amongst the local bank. For some large commercial bank like Vietcombank, military bank or Techcombank, they have the loan loss coverage ratio of over 200%, while the smaller one, this figure is around 40 or 50% already. That means for the large bank, they are better protected against the future losses, while the smaller bank on the right hand side may be more vulnerable to the bad debt in the future. Regarding the earning quality, in recent years, the local bank enjoyed a strong growth in the operating income, and the NIM has been steadily improved over the recent year. However, it's since the slightly decreased since early this year, mainly due to the hike in the deposit rate. The strong improvement in the NIM in recent year mainly supported by the low CASA deposit, and in the figure 31 we show the top 4 banks who have the highest CASA ratios in the market, and they are also the most active bank in implementing the digital transformation that have them to attract more low-cost CASA deposit from the customer. In earning structures, we see that the local bank also enjoy the continuous double-digit growth from the fee and commission income, and the income from the insurance business account for the large portion in the fee income structures. And for some large bank like military bank, they have very strong life insurance company, subsidiary company, and non-life insurance company. So they have the highest income from the insurance business compared to other banks in the market. Regarding the capital adequacy ratios, as we can see on the screen, for now the capital adequacy ratio for the whole banking sector in Vietnam is around 11% only. It's rather low compared to other commercial banks in the peer country in the regions. And we also break down the capital adequacy ratios by separate bank in the market. And we can see that for some large private bank like Techcombank, HD Bank or VB Bank, they have strong capital base, and their capital adequacy ratios is around 40 or 50% already for now. But for some large state-owned bank like Vietcombank, Vietinbank or BIDV, their capital adequacy ratios is quite low, around 9% only. Therefore, all the commercial banks in Vietnam are required by the central bank to continue increasing their capital base to improve their capital buffer and support their long-term business growth in the future. Regarding the operational efficiency, we can see that the cost-to-income ratios of the banking sector in Vietnam gradually improved in recent years, and the most efficient bank in terms of cost-to-income ratios are also the bank who invest and aggressively implement their digital transformation, like military bank or Techcombank or VB Bank. Regarding the profitability, we can see that the private bank outperforms the state-owned bank. In the next slide, I would like to give you a very quick update on the key development trends in the banking sector in Vietnam for now. Firstly, regarding the digital transformation, we see that the digital transformation has become the backbone of the long-term strategy, development strategies for the own bank in Vietnam. to support them to improve not only the operational efficiency, the customer experience, but also to support expanding their customer base. And here I would like to show some initiative in terms of digital transformation by some local bank in Vietnam for your reference. The second one is the M&A and consideration in the sector. As you may know, for now in Vietnam, the government and the central bank, they do not issue the new license to establish the new bank in Vietnam because the local authorities want to focus on restructuring of the existing bank in Vietnam for now. And in recently, some large commercial bank like Vietcombank and military bank are allowed by the central bank to receive mandatory transfer some weak bank we call the $0 bank, like construction bank or ocean bank. Yeah, and they win in charge for the restructuring for the weak bank here. This is the weak bank has been nationalized around 10 years ago, and they has put up for sale by the central bank for nearly 10 years. But I understand that the negotiation between the local authorities and the foreign strategic buyer failed. Therefore, for now, the large local bank Jamin and support to restructuring and turn around the weak bank. And I think that compared to the foreign players, the large local bank, they have more in-depth understanding of the local practice in here, and they have enough human resources that support them can well turn around the weak bank in here. And besides the M&A, the local bank also plans to raise capital via private placement. Yeah, as I saw on the screen. Yeah, they want to improve their capital base as required by the central bank. And recently, according to the restructuring of credit institution and the bad debts settlement schedule released by the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister also encouraged the M&A between the local bank to reduce the number of players in the sector and also to strengthen the financial of the banking sector. And we also to discuss the we also discuss the M&A in the consumer finance in Vietnam. As you may know, in recent year we witnessed some significant M&A transactions between the local consumer finance company and the foreign strategic buyer. And looking forward, we think that there may some further acquisitions between the leading local and foreign players and the local consumer finance company in Vietnam, like Havic, Fcom, or Home Credit. And I would like to give you the quick update on the performance of the non-bank sector. The first one is the consumer finance. And in the last 2 years of the COVID, due to the impact of the COVID, the growth in the consumer finance has been slowing down. And regarding the market share in consumer finance, the banking sector account for the largest portion, around 93%, and the 70% belong to the FiinGroup's consumer finance company. And we think that thanks to the strong consumption demand this year, the consumer finance will bounce back in 2022. The second topic on the consumer finance, we would like to look at the asset quality of the FiinGroup in Vietnam. As we can see on the figure 46, due to the negative impact of the pandemic, the asset quality of the FiinGroup has hit. The NPL jumped from the 5.5% in 2020 up to the 9.6% already. The main reason for the quick deterioration in the asset quality of the consumer finance in Vietnam is because the target customer of them belong to the low income workers, and most of them are the unsecured loans. Therefore, I think it takes time for the consumer finance company to improve their asset quality in the time to come. And the next sections for the non-bank is belong to the corporate bond. I would like to introduce Mr. Tung Anh from our FiinRatings to share the insight on the corporate bond market in Vietnam. Tung Anh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Dong, for the insightful review of the banking sector. And in this section, as a representative of FiinRatings, we have studied the corporate bond markets extensively in Vietnam. And thus, I would like to share a brief picture of the market with you. So the first thing to say about the corporate bonds markets in Vietnam is that it has been very active in the last 5 years. As shown in the figure 49, the bond issuance has grown steadily with a CAGR compound annual growth rate of 46%. And this issuance is mainly privately placed, typically 5% of the corporate bonds to be issued via this channel. And looking at the other two figures, you can see there are two key takeaways. The first one is that despite the high growth, the scale of this market in Vietnam is relatively small in the regional market, and it implies a big room for growth in the coming years. Secondly, the capital mobilized in the C-bond markets have exceeded the ones in the medium and long-term loans, new loans of commercial banks, which means that the role of this market has grown significantly in the past few years and is reflecting its utmost important characteristic, which has to mobilize the medium and long-term capital. And to the next slide, we can have a few insights into the C-bond markets. With the first one to be the leading issuers are the real estate developers, banks, and the financial service company. Throughout the years, these three sectors make up 2/3 of the markets in Vietnam. And the primary buyers are securities company, banks, and domestic institutions, as you can see in the figure 53. The significant change in 2021 is that securities company aggressively bought bonds in the primary markets, of which they sell most of the bonds to individuals, professional investor. And we have shared this in our market insights of the FiinRatings last month. And because of this one, we may expect a big drop in 2022 as new regulation will redefine and tighten the requirements for professional investor in the coming months. And regarding the rates and tenors, as you can see in the two lowest figures on the slide, we can see banks enjoyed the low yield with short tenors thanks to the low interbank interest rates in 2021 and the fact that they issue bonds mainly to comply with the Basel II requirements. And another notable sector is the real estate, of course, with a high average yield and a relatively short tenor averaging at 3.4 years, which has some implications on its credit risk and cause regulators to tighten the supervisory and monitoring. And to the next slide, and indeed, there are several significant change events in Vietnam in 2022. And I would like to point out the three most standout ones in this chart. The overall effect is that the market became less active. The cancellations of the 9 bond issuance in April 2022 has been in focus for the last few months, where there are violations and misbehaving of economic groups, real estate developers, and such issues in the largest sectors of the C-bonds and the tightening measures have led both buyers and issuers to refrain from the market activities. But still, we expect this would lead to major changes and help improve the market transparency and develop more sustainably. And the other two events are policy change, which I have summarized in these diagrams. I won't go deeply into the details, but we'll go straight to the critical points of the two policy. That's the circular number 16 of the State Bank of Vietnam, aimed to ensure the quality and safety of the corporate bond investment by credit institutions, while the goal of the draft decree amending 153 is to enhance the transparency and reduce the credit risk to bond investors. And within the policy updates, there was some arguments stated by the Ministry of Finance that there is an utmost need to develop the credit rating service to enhance the market transparency. And as one of the two licensed CRA credit rating agencies in Vietnam, we clearly see why it is essential to the C-bond market. And by applying credit ratings and their results, Vietnam can offer a greater source of information to both domestics and foreign investors. And a great example from FiinRatings is that our scale of rating scales of the real estate developers, unlike sovereign rating in Vietnam being the ceiling to other rating of the international one, we as a domestic CRA, we benchmark the G bonds, government bond at the highest rank, and thus had a broader range for issuers in this credit rating differentiations, as you can see in the figure 58. And issuers and investors can access our analysis and strive for better quality as following the scale on the right figures to develop themselves. And by positioning its standing, real estate developers in this case can also have a clear advantage in issuing bonds and promoting their own reputation to buyers. So for example, here is that you can see there's the Van Phu Invest in our ranks here, which is recently rated as BBB minus, and they just successfully issues 7 billion Vietnam dollars bonds. And of course, FiinGroup also offers other benefits to the market to fulfill its fiduciary roles. For example, in March, we was authorized by the Climate Bond Initiative as the first approved verifier in Vietnam to verify green bonds. And we believe that we will be able to support the development of the capital markets and also the goal to achieve the net zero emission commitment that Vietnam has at the COP26. And thank you for listening, and back to Mr. Dong.
Yes, thank you, Tung Nguyen, for your interesting discussion on the corporate bond market in Vietnam. Yeah, so I would like to recap my discussion on the banking sector in Vietnam. In general, I think that in the short run, the banking sector may face some short-term challenges in terms of the asset quality or credit exposure to some risky areas, but in the long run, its prospect is quite promising. Specifically, I think that this year the credit growth is forecasted to achieve around 30 or 40%, thanks to the strong recovery of the economic activities and also the increasing credit demands. And the on-balance sheet NPL may increase to around 2 or 3% due to the full reclassification of the COVID hit loans. However, we think that the NPL will be well contained and addressed by the local bank. And the NIM may witness the decline due to the high in the deposit rate because the liquidity is not abundant in the context of the increasing credit demand and the central bank direction to control the liquidity to control the inflation risk. The digital transformation continue to be the backbone in the long-term strategy of the most local bank in here to have them to improve the customer experience and also optimize their end-to-end business operation. And the consideration in the banking sector and consumer finance sector expected to keep occurring in the next 3 years. And in the private placement opportunity will be opened for the foreign investor from the local players, because the local bank and local credit institution, they are required to continue raising their debt or equity capital to improve their capital buffer and support the long-term business growth. And the last one, we think that the rating service would become an essential one in the time to come to support the corporate bond market developments and also the lending business in here. And also it's quite essential for the credit institutions themselves when they join the capital markets to raise debt capitals from bonds, loans, or other debt instruments. So I would like to conclude my discussion on the banking sector in here. And yes. And in the next slide is the some of our track records in the market research and consulting service. The financial sector is one of the key sectors we cover for years, including the banking, consumer finance, payment and leasing service. And here is our track record in serving some large financial institutions in recent years. And for the rating, FiinGroup is the second one in Vietnam to receive the rating license from the Ministry of Finance. When we received the technical transfer from the S&P Global Rating under a technical assistant project from the ADB. And we are the most active credit rating agency in Vietnam. We have rated the 7 the bond issue in Vietnam, including the 3 financial institution and lender, including the military bank security, the Vietcredit, and the FHH. So for now, I would like to conclude my presentation in here, and I would like to transfer to Mr. Lực. He can share with us some more insight on the banking performance and the outlook in Vietnam for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dong, and thank you for joining us on this very meaningful insight session. I just have got a few points here to add. Number one, I quite agree to the insights, okay, by Mr. Dong and Mr. Thuan Anh, who have just talked to you some time ago. And secondly, I will give you maybe some explanation on why the banking sector in Vietnam has achieved some good performance last year. And number 3, I will talk a little bit about the macro perspective this year and maybe next year. And then finally, I will touch upon the banking outlook this year. Okay, so you see, we have been reviewing the performance of the banking sector last year. And we could see that they did a very good job overall. Why? Because if you look at the earnings growth of the top 29 banks, accounting for about 85% of the total banking assets, their revenues, their earnings before tax, last year grew by 31%. Okay, and there were 4 main reasons for that. The first reason you may see, okay, that was the very strong growth of interest and also non-interest income. For example, if we look at the interest income, as Mr. Dong talked to you the net interest income was quite good in the past 2 years. Okay, thanks to the declining deposit rate, a little bit slower compared to the decrease in the lending debt. And the second reason is because of the higher non-interest income, which increased by 11% last year. And there are some reasons for this one, but basically, banks have been trying to diversify their activities, okay, by having more digital banking platforms activities, whereby they can increase more CASA ratio, as Mr. Dong talked to you, okay, from around 20% of the total deposits to 23% last year, which has made a very big improvement in the past 2 years. And banks also have been trying to cut costs, as many banks in the region. They cut costs by about 3 to 4% last year. Okay, so if you look at the very important ratio here, cost to income ratio of the banks declining, okay, from 39% to 33% at the end of last year overall. So I think it was a very good picture in terms of cost control of many banks in Vietnam now. Okay, and next one, banks also have been able to increase productivity. I mean labor productivity. We'll look at that too. It increased by 52% last year. Okay, thanks to the human resources, they have become more flexible, working from home, and of course, more automation, and also digitalization in the banking sector. Okay, so I think they are doing okay and in the very right trend in that dynamics. However, I would like to emphasize that they are also facing two main risks, as Mr. Dong has mentioned to you, and Tuan Anh too. The first risk we are seeing that is potential non-performing loans, which might be on the rise. Why? Because if we look at in the past 2 years, the Central Bank of Vietnam has released some documents, some regulations, which allow banks in Vietnam to, restructure the loans without changing the loan classification. And they also allow, credit loss provisions making for a period of 3 years, okay, from 2021 to the end of 2023. Meaning that, some potential NPLs may come up if these policies terminate. So there could be two scenarios. The first scenario is that SBV, Central Bank of Vietnam, may extend that kind of policy, okay, for some time, maybe at the end of this year to the end of next year, in line with the recovery program by the government. We hope that would be the very best and the very likely scenario. And the second scenario, maybe they stop, okay, they stop that kind of, policy. And in that case, some potential non-performing loans may arise. Even in that case, we can see that it's still very much under control. Why? Because banks have increased their non-performing loan coverage ratio, as Mr. Dong talked to you some time ago. Okay, before it was about 90%, now it's about 150% coverage ratio. Okay, even we may see some non-performing loans increase sometime in the future. And in that case, we can say that banks in Vietnam have become more resilient compared to, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago, in terms of capital adequacy, in terms of credit loss provisions, also in terms of risk management. Okay, and the second downside risk for the banking sector in Vietnam now is still, they are still facing a little bit low capital adequacy ratio, as Mr. Dong talked to you. Around 9% under Basel II compliance standards. So of course, now if you compare, every year banks in Vietnam increase credit by about 14%, even 15%, but their equity increased only about 10%. Okay, so they need to increase more and more capital. Okay, so that's why they will continue to do so, and that's why they're also looking forward to talking to different strategic investors, people like you, okay, who might be interested in investing into their portfolio now or in the future. Okay, and that is my second comment. And my third comment is about the macro perspective this year. So basically, we are seeing very strong economic recovery in Vietnam. Okay, especially since the fourth quarter last year, GDP was growing at about 5.2%, and this year we are forecasting that GDP of Vietnam could grow at about 5.5 to 6% this year. That is under our baseline scenario. And next year will be a little bit higher. Okay, if the geopolitical risk between Russia and Ukraine may become a better outcome for them and also for the global economy. Inflation in Vietnam, of course, it will be higher this year. Okay, last year it was very low, only about 1.84%. But this year it will be double, around 4%. We are forecasting. Even it is 4%, I think it's still very much okay. Given the global inflation now is very high, it could be about 6% for the global inflation this year. Okay, having said that, in line with the strong recovery of the economy of Vietnam, we can see banking sector will continue to perform well this year and also next year. We are forecasting credit growth of about 14 to 15% this year, and it will be the same momentum for next year. Why? Because the government in Vietnam is implementing the very huge economic recovery program of around $15 billion, as you may have heard about some time ago. So we are forecasting that banks' earning before tax this year will grow between 20 to 25%. Okay, a little bit lower compared to 31% last year, but it's still quite good, given those some downside risk, as I talked to you. Banks will continue the consolidation process, as Mr. Tonang and Dong talked to you. Okay, the weak banks will be acquired, will be taken over by the stronger banks, as you may see sometime in the future. Banking digitalization will become even faster, because we have already the digitalization strategy by the central bank. They issued it last May, and they also have submitted to the government on the cashless payment strategy for the next 10 years, with a lot of very ambitious goals for cashless payments and also for banking penetration. And banca assurance between the banks and insurance company will continue to develop and provide some new source of income for banks too, now accounting for about 5 to 10% of the total income for banks. Okay, non-performing loans increase as I talked to you, but under control and with a very strong recovery, with a very much better dynamics of the banks recently and in the next coming year. And finally, if you look at that kind of outlook and you compare with the very low price of the banking stocks in the market nowadays, of course, smart investors should go for bank stocks. I hope so. Okay, thank you all, and all the best, and we may talk to you in the Q&A session later on. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, speakers. Actually, I would like to answer one of the questions. We have a number of questions and comments on sharing slides. You can download the insightful slides from the FiinGroup after this event. So it will appear when you finish submitting the feedback form. So please stay with us until the end, and then don't forget to share your thoughts through the feedback form, please. So now I'd like to invite Chandra.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for attending today. So special thank you to FiinGroup for the very in-depth. Is just to highlight briefly our service, which is called ScoutAsia. It is a business intelligence tool which is used for various purposes, primarily for business research. So just allow me to share my screen. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, so the platform is called ScoutAsia. ScoutAsia is basically a joint venture between Nikkei, Financial Times, and also Handshakes. We also have our data partners and providers such as FiinGroup from Vietnam. So basically what the platform is doing, it is curating various sources of information, particularly news and data, into one site, one. Yeah. So as you can see here, I've already created some alerts. So these are some of the alerts that I have created, and you can actually go in and do your own searches. So example is you go and search via your news, and from the news you can actually do a filtering. So you have many types of filters. You can filter via the publication date. You can filter via the sources, and we have a very large number of sources basically focus on Asia. Yeah, you can also filter via sectors, and you also can use the AI to do filtering for you, which I will show you shortly how to use the AI to do the filters for yourself. We also have pre-made AIs, which is, as you can see below here, blockchain, tab offering, and a few other things, yeah, which we feel are topics that are very interesting to be monitored. You can also do news searches via. You can just key in the company and you can actually do the search there itself, or you can also search via regions. Yeah. If you go to the news, I'd like to highlight something. The news actually is also machine translated if I can find one article for you. So basically, we have the Nikkei news, which is translated from the Nikkei directly to English via machine learning. Yeah. Also, filtering via the news, you can also filter via companies. Let's say we're looking at a particular company. I'd like to highlight Vietnam company. So Vietnam Technological and Commercial Bank, yes. If you click on this, you now come to a screen which actually gives you it has ownership status, year founded, it shows you the sectors, it shows you the officers and directors, a bit of the market price. Yeah. Also, we have the financials. So you have from the financials, you can see the overview, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, the cash flow. Yeah. And also quite interesting, I would say, feature is that it has the system actually tracks how many mentions this particular company gets in the news. So if you see on 29th of April, it says 6 mentions. When I click on this, what happens is it shows me the articles of that on that particular day with regards to that particular company. So if I click here, it shows me the article, and this is from the Vietnam news itself. Yeah. Okay. Let's say, in case you like to monitor this particular company, you can actually add this to a list and put it to a target list. On your landing page, it will be under your My Alerts here. Okay. Further to the news and the company data, we also have a macro overview. Let's say we're looking at Vietnam. We can go to Vietnam, and it gives you a brief summary regarding the economy and basic information about the country. From there, also, you will notice that there is sector reports. So sector reports, we have ASHU Research, and we also have EMIS from UK. These reports are actually very in-depth. So if you see this latest report, I think it's 2022-2023 regarding the ICT sector. If you open this up, you can see that this report is a very lengthy report and very in-depth. So this will give you a good idea of particular sectors in certain countries for you to actually hold on, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Other than that, you can also do a sector search. So let's say we're looking at sectors via financial. So we're looking at the banking sector. You can also have a macro overview of the banking sector. So it will give you a banking sector. This is basically a general sector. You can also add a region. Let's say you only want to look for banking sector, Vietnam, Australia, or something like that. You can also do that. And also at the same time here as well, we have the reporting, the EMIS reporting. Okay. So for your alerts, basically you have a few types of alerts that you can set up. Okay. Your alert settings, as I mentioned earlier, one was the Scout AI. So the Scout AI is basically the machine which you actually teach it to identify. Example would be this topic, cryptocurrency, which is just a demo. Let's say you start to create a topic of cryptocurrency, you put in some of the details that you want to search, and then it will prompt you articles. So these articles are then is for you to actually confirm whether they are relevant or not relevant to you specifically. So once you've done about 10 articles, the AI will actually start to learn what relevant topics, what relevant articles to prompt to you, and it will actually then prompt it in your landing page. Okay. Other settings as well for the alert settings, you can do a safe search. Basically, safe search is just your keyword search, and target list is basically your company. So if you have many companies that you want to monitor, you can also put it into your target list. The second part of the platform itself is more on the data part. Plus, basically, you are having access to the company registry data in various countries. So let's say we're looking for a company, take Vietnam. Vietnam. Okay. So here we go. So Vietnam Technological and Commercial Joint Stock Bank. I can add this to do a search. We call this a radial search. So in the radial search, once I do this, you can actually see all the connections between the various entities that are related to this particular company. Also, depending on how large the company is, the generating the map may take some time. But from here, then you can actually do a very in-depth look. Okay. So this is the company that this is the bank that we're actually looking at. And you can see that all these entities are actually related to it via certain different relationships. Okay. So let's say we are looking at, hold on. Yeah. Let's say we're looking at this company. So this is construction and high technology development investment joint stock company. So it's saying that our first entity is a shareholder of this company, and it also has the source document for you to actually view. Okay. From here, let's say you are curious to know about this particular company, you can actually go in and you can actually expand further. So when you do an expansion here, it's going to show you the relationships between this company and others. Okay. And also, again, you can also expand further. Here. So this graph, this whole graph basically gives you an idea of who is behind the company and what are the connections to that particular company, past and previous. Yeah. You can actually export this as a PDF. Okay. Or you can also do you can see this in a table view. Yeah. Apart from this graph, this is called the radial graph, we also have other features which are in the Connections Plus part of the platform. So one is entity profile report, which basically gives you details of the company. One is a red list report to say if the company or the person is either being under any regulatory actions or any issues legally. Legal beneficial ownership, which basically you can determine who is the ultimate owner of a particular company, and also is actually the owner of this company or how many companies is under them. Yeah. At the same time, also you can also set alerts. So if you set an alert, it's basically you key in which company that you would like to receive alerts on, and you add it to alert. So any changes that happen within the company with regards to the graph you saw earlier, it will also be emailed to you and highlighted to you via email. Yeah. Okay. Just to recap, I believe there's a lot of other functions that I could share, but we do not have enough time today. So hopefully, if you feel there's any further queries on your side, you can reach out to our team anytime. And thank you all for having us today. Yeah, pass it over to you, Ms. Kenny. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra. Now, I think it's time for questions and answers. Okay. So everyone, thank you for sharing your comments and questions. We've got a lot already. I'm sure we can't answer all the questions, but maybe we'll start with some of the questions submitted earlier. The first one, I think Dawn can answer this, how the capital market development looks like, and how we reshape the role of banking sector in the coming years.
Yes, thank you, Nitasan. Yes, as you may know, for now, we have a very low penetration rate of the corporate bond market in Vietnam. According to my presentation before, the corporate bond to the GDP in Vietnam is around 14% only, much lower than the other in the regions, implying that there is more room for the growth in Vietnam in the time to come. And corporate bonds, they provide the long-term capital, and the bank, they focus on the provide the short-term capital, because the most of the deposit for bank is short-term. Therefore, I think that the corporate bond market will complement the banking sector, not on substitutions. And in the future, in the next 5 years, I think the weight of the corporate bond will be increased in Vietnam, and the banking sector, the role of the banking sector will be maintained, and focus on the improve the asset quality of the bank. And of course, in order to support the healthy developments of the corporate bond in Vietnam in the time to come, the local authorities, especially the Ministry of Finance, will release more regulation to improve the quality of the disclosure or market transparency, and to protect the bond investor. This is the key factor to support the long-term sustainable growth of the corporate bond in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We wanted to get a comment from Dr. Luke on this question, particularly on the inflation and the monetary policies of other neighboring countries, and how it affects Vietnam banking sector. Please.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very important question that I have received from many investors recently. So, we did publish our paper some time ago, and we identified 5 main impacts of the rising inflation and also tightening fiscal and monetary policy globally, especially from the Fed in the US. You know that, with the higher policy rates, and then, the global economy will recover slowly, more slowly. GDP growth globally this year will be, roughly about 3% compared to 6.1% growth last year. Okay, and some people even have a talk about stagflation, but we don't think we are facing the global stagflation. But stagflation will occur in a number of economies. Okay, so we see when we are seeing slower global economic recovery, it will reduce a little bit demand for export, for investment from and into Vietnam. But I do think Vietnam will continue to achieve a high export growth rate, around 15% this year, okay, compared to 18% last year, a little bit lower. The second impact will be on Vietnam inflation, as I talked to you before, because we import a lot of goods and services, from overseas. So inflation in Vietnam this year will be roughly about 4% compared to 1.84% last year. The next impact will be on, on higher rate of interest, especially in US dollar and in foreign currencies in Vietnam. Unfortunately, but fortunately, the external debt of Vietnam has been under control, and now only about 33% of GDP last year. Okay, and most of which were very long-term and low rates by the government, and most of which were also loans taken by the FDI sector. The local sector foreign loans, okay, account for only about 25% of the total external corporate debts in Vietnam. The next impact will be on exchange rate, as you may have seen. But the Vietnamese dong has been very dynamic and so very much resilient. So so far, Vietnamese dong has depreciated about 1.7%. For the whole year, we think that it may depreciate about 2 to 2.3%. Of course, even much better compared to many other regional currencies, which have depreciated up to about 5 to even 11 or 12% this year so far. Okay, and the next one will be the capital flow impact also. Okay, you will have seen a lot of net sale of foreign investors in certain emerging markets, but not the case of Vietnam. Okay, for Vietnam, from beginning of this year up to now, a lot of net purchase, about $300 million of net purchase by foreign investors into Vietnam, meaning that they still believe that Vietnam will recover and Vietnam will be doing very okay in the time to come. Okay. Finally, I would like to add one point here to Mr. Dong's comment on corporate bond market. You know that it will develop. Even in the past few months, there have been some kind of violations, and the government has punished them very severely. Okay, and the government also has identified those problems, and they are going to fix it by issuing a new regulation, a new and revised regulation on corporate bond market to make it sounder and also stronger in the coming years. Because in Vietnam, we need a lot of medium and long-term capital by the corporate and also by the banking sector. In my own estimate, every year, apart from the banking credit for medium and long-term loans, the corporate sector in Vietnam will need around $30 to $40 billion in corporate bond issuance. Okay, so as I am advising the Vietnamese government, and we strongly advocate for the credit rating enhancement in Vietnam. It's very important for the investors, especially for the retail investors in Vietnam. Now they have basically very little knowledge, very little information, lack of transparency. So they do need some more, credit rating services so that they can rely on and making informed investment decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luke. Actually, we were preparing a few more cards, but I'd like to take a few from the live questions. So we from the recently posted ones, I see a few on the credit rating development in Vietnam. So I think maybe I want to hear from Trinh Nguyen on this. So it says what is the view on the credit rating development in Vietnam? And then I found this sector very weak right now, and as a support for the corporate bond market. Is it growing?
Yes, thank you, Nita, for the questions. So let me just chase back to a little bit of history about the credit ratings in Vietnam. So the legal framework just started in 2014 with the Decree 88 of the government in 2014. And of course, it is growing, and the legal framework has started building and established since then. And there are now 2 credit rating agencies. I myself I would argue that it is not a weak development to the CRAs here in Vietnam. They are because of the 3 reasons. First, there are actually an adequate number of credit ratings agencies in Vietnam, and also we had the quite similar number of rating agencies compared to the regional markets. So look at Thailand and Malaysia, and probably in the next few years, with the increasing demand for credit ratings, we welcome another or 2 new credit rating agencies. Number 2 is that even though there are just a few agencies, we are actively, both of the existing credit rating agencies are collaborating with international credit ratings agencies. We work with S&P, and the other rating agency works with Fitch, and also other new and establishing agency would also try to learn from the best practice and also cooperate with the international well-known popular agents. And the third reason is that thanks to the legal framework and all this preparation from the government and the Ministry of Finance, we actually have a quite sound and comprehensive methodologies in order to help lessen the information asymmetry of the bond market. And if we think about the number of the credit rating agencies, just 2, and if you think it is weak, then I would say that it is not the fact. What we need to do is that we need to increase the demand of the credit rating agency. We need to increase the awareness of the investors and raise the culture of, when you try to invest into bonds and other debt instruments, the first question you need to do is that to do your lesson, like to do the homework, like what is the company that you're investing to? What is the credit rating results? And starting with that demand, then we can create and develop the credit rating markets to go along with the developments of the bonds market sustainably and soundly. Thank you, Nita.
Thank you very much. I think another one on this this is for Dr. Luke, perhaps. If you have any comments on this, please share your view on 2% interest supporting package, and how much of new loan will be eligible for this package in 2022 and next year.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a long, quite a long question, but I will try to be brief. Basically, this is a very good support program by the Vietnam National Assembly and the government, and we were very much involved in providing advice for this component. So basically now the government will subsidize the 2% rate of interest for lending, okay, for loans. But this one is very much different from the one we did in 2009. Number one, there was very clear time frame for this program, only 2 years, and after 2 years, it is not spent all of them, and then there will be no more extension. Number two, there's very clear definition where the funding source comes from. This one's mainly from the state budget, okay, the fiscal policy. And number three, there are very clearly defined, qualified sectors, eligible sectors, about 13 of them, not all, because we see that not all sectors have been badly affected by the pandemic. Okay, and finally, the government has already issued the guidelines, and central bank also have issued the guidelines. So banks now have already started to review loans and also provide new loans under the eligibility criteria to provide those subsidized rate of interest for 2%. So if you see the impact, it will about 1,000 trillion, 1,000 trillion Vietnamese dong per year in credit, in bank credit will be subsidized of 2% interest. Okay, but don't assume that it must be that number. The number could be lower. It depends on the term, so banks and borrowers need to catch up with the term. But it's also very important for them to do it correctly from the beginning. We have got some good lesson from our past experience. So I do believe the program will create good, conditions for firms or borrowers to recover better, and also banks will be under less pressure to reduce rate of interest for borrowers as in the past 2 years. By doing so, the government can also help the banking sector maintain the low rate of interest without increasing it. Admit we have seen a lot of policy rate hikes globally recently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hook. Actually, we are already at the end of this session, 90-minute session. Well, very unfortunate, but we must close this session here. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attendance today, and also a lot of questions and comments to us. It was really inspiring and encouraging at the same time. We always value your feedback, so please take a moment to leave your comment through the form. Actually, you can download. Thank you. You can download the presentation slides at the end of the form. I'm sure it will be more insightful for you as well. So thank you so much, and then have a great evening. Thank you, speakers.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.